Okay, now it's now 1. I guess we can get started. Hello, guys. Good evening, good morning, and good afternoon, depending on which part of the world you are from. I think I saw the attendee list. Most of you guys are from Singapore, but there are people from Africa, and there are people from US as well. So let's get started. So I have a copy, and I'm pasting the YouTube live stream link in case any one of you YouTube live stream link as a backup if your friends can't access this Zoom meeting. All right, it's just serve as a backup. Otherwise, if you are here, the video streaming I think will be the highest quality compared to YouTube. Okay. All right, we have around 100 participants. I just want to see whether Lawrence, I think Lawrence is not here at the moment. Okay, anyway, we'll get started now. So when you Google TagUI, you'll see the GitHub homepage, and when you click onto it, you'll see the GitHub homepage, and there's a slide deck. So I'll use this slide deck as the anchor for today's talk. I'll share my screen now. Okay. All right. So today's talk will be about RPA, robotic process automation. And it will be a combination of live demos, videos of RPA using TagUI, as well as the slide deck of key ideas and features, and comparison tables that you might find useful in your shopping around for which open source RPA tool to use, right? So RPA. So in the first place, what's RPA? Robotic process automation. Robotic process automation, every time we have a new way of telling the computer to do something for us, we actually give the computer new powers. So from the very first desktop apps, web applications, your mobile apps, and then more recently, your machine learning apps, all those are examples of a new way of telling computer to do something for us. That's the same for RPA. But RPA, what we are trying to tell the computer to do is to tell it how to consume apps that are designed for humans to use. But instead of letting humans use it, we design robots to consume those apps. So that's essentially RPA. And different tools and software use different ways to represent all these instructions. For TagUI, we use English language syntax, kind of like human language. So you do things like go to a web page, you click login, you type your username as something, you type your password as something, and you log in. And it can be done not just in English. You can use 20 other languages in the world, to do it in Chinese, in Hindi, Malay, various European languages as well. And if there isn't a language native to you, you can use the already built-in RPA workflow by TagUI to generate your language dictionary using Google Translate automatically. Okay. Let me just jump right into the demos for RPA. So for TagUI RPA, you do stuff like you go to a website, you get some numbers, and in this case, it's Forex rates. I go to a banking website. I download the Forex rates for this from this banking website for the currencies that I want, and I save it to a spreadsheet to send to my boss, for example. So when you see the screen, the mouse moving, sending an email, typing and attaching the spreadsheet, all these are RPA. It's like somewhat like a ghost controlling your mouse, your keyboard. Yeah, so that's RPA for you. That what you see on the screen is nothing specific to TagUI. All RPA tools can do things like that. The main differences I'll cover in the next slide. And then you have your spreadsheet of your different Forex rates. And you can do other things like automate extraction of information from your text, government tax account. You can do things like doing OCR from the client documents. You can do things like controlling your Microsoft Word to print custom letters for marketing purposes. You can do things like, in Singapore, there's RedMart, so you can do a repeat grocery order. So I write a TagUI robot that my wife uses every week. She has a spreadsheet to store what are the list of things she want to purchase this week, the quantity. Then TagUI, she'll just run it to add all those stuff to cart. And why we do that? Because as big as RedMart is, there somehow doesn't seem to have a function to repeat a previous order. So we got to manually add item by item, which is very time consuming. For us, we never shop at the supermarket, the physical store. We always order online. So the quantity will be a lot. So for us, RPA will save us time. Things like automating COVID reports from WHO, from a PDF file or from a PDF table, can we extract the data and then put it in another form? So all these things can be done with TagUI. And MOH report locally for Singapore. Sometimes you have events and you need to do some mass registration. You can also give a spreadsheet of participant data, and based on the data, you can ask TagUI to do whatever you need for the mass application or registration. For example, in this case, it is a local Singapore government website for registering certain grants for training purposes. Xero, yeah, if you guys are from accounting sector, definitely TagUI can automate Xero accounting software. Okay, now all these are examples of RPA. Let me see. So before I go to the next slide, I just want to do a quick intro about AI Singapore. So we have 122 participants now. So let me go to AI Singapore homepage. And I want to see whether Lawrence is here. Then I can ask him to say a few words. Okay, I don't think I see Lawrence here, but never mind. I'll just continue. So in 2015 and 16, I was working at DBS Bank. And sorry, I'll mute everyone for now. I think somebody was unmuted, so there's background noise. But just feel free to unmute back if you need to say something or ask a question. Okay, so in 2015 and 16, I was with DBS and I was doing test automation. Then after that, I spent a year in sabbatical, mostly in Eastern Europe, to develop TagUI and created it. And in 2017, I met Mr. Lawrence Liu, a director at AI Singapore. He was starting to form his engineering team, and he was asking me, would I want to join and continue developing the tool here? So I did. And to me, that's like the best place and the best home for TagUI. Given AI Singapore being not a commercial company, it's actually a national AI program. So we are funded ultimately by taxpayers. So there are many things we do under the whole umbrella of our initiatives. Some will be long-term research for at least 5 years. Some will be shorter term, like 100 experiments that we work closely with the market. Some will be some other open source tool that you see under AI Makerspace. So I invite you guys to check out AI Singapore homepage. There you'll find other resources around AI and machine learning. And RPA, TagUI is just part of what we offer for free to the Singapore ecosystems. And for some of those online resources, it's free as well for the global community. All right, so let me jump back to the slide deck. So recently I start to form a slide deck slide to compare the difference between TagUI and UiPath. On first glance, you may be thinking they are so different. Their interface is so different. How can they be compared? So actually, we have very different user interface, but we are still trying to solve the same basic problem of how to automate the workflows and repetitive processes. And in a certain sense, there are certain advantages that UI has over the UiPath Community Edition. For example, there's unlimited robots compared to a limited number. You can run on Windows, Mac, and Linux. After 1 day of learning, you should be ready to start writing robots and running and deploying it. Versus a UiPath, you probably take at least a week. And UiPath rely a lot on the community of users in their forum to help each other. But a lot of time I heard is you can't really get answers that you need for your specific domain and the specific scenarios, because those people who are there to get answers for their problems as well. So what TagUI offer is we have a 24-hour SLA. When you raise an issue on GitHub, we try to respond within 24 hours, including weekends. Then there's also a weekly live Q&A where every Thursday at 4 p.m. Singapore time, we will meet up with any users can join in the Zoom call, can join the YouTube live stream meeting, and they can post their questions there, and we try our best to answer so that their automation project can be successful. And of course, we also have the forum, the GitHub forum. In fact, we will have a live Q&A tomorrow at Singapore time 4 p.m. So at the end of today's session, if the Q&A is too short for your answers to your question to be answered, just feel free to join the live Q&A session tomorrow if you can make it. I will show you guys the link later. Yeah, so essentially, instead of a flowchart, we do it using human language descriptions. You know, they use VB.NET. In C#, we use JavaScript and Python, user base, and so on. Anyway, this is still work in progress, so I won't spend too much time talking about this. Once I get more details and color, I'll update this slide. And anyway, this slide is accessible from the GitHub homepage. You guys can refer to it as and when if you need to do a comparison, for example. Okay, so in the open source world, depending on what matrix you use, in a number of matrix, actually TagUI is kind of like the leading open source RPA tool. For example, since a year and a half ago, the total downloads for the tool has been over 30,000 already. And depending on how you see stars, right? We are the tool with the highest stars. Yeah, but anyway, so we also have a live map of where the users are. So this is in real time. So if you go and download now, one copy of TagUI, it will be reflected here. So let me show you. Where's Singapore? Okay. Singapore is really, really small, so I got to zoom in. So there's 4,000 plus downloads for TagUI since a year and a half ago. Yeah, and we hope this number to grow, because when your user base start to grow, there's a lot of network effects where people create resources, create tutorials, create videos or examples, then they can share around and everybody grow together and learn together. So we really hope that can happen. Yeah, the footnotes are some info on where these statistics come from, if you're interested. Okay, usage. Top 4 usage. Top 4 countries: India, US, Singapore, and China. And top 4 industry: tech and IT, finance and banking, healthcare, and retail and consumer. You might be surprised with healthcare, but to be honest, in the healthcare sector, there's a lot of legacy apps that is not integrated with each other. So large healthcare organizations actually use RPA to link up the different legacy apps to communicate with each other. And the top 4 processes: accounting and finance, IT automation, CRM, and onboarding and HR. So all these are use cases and processes that's top for RPA. And no surprise for accounting and finance, because for this sector particularly, you're dealing with a huge volume every day. You're dealing with the need for very rigid rules for compliance reasons. You're dealing with the need for auditing data. So RPA itself is the best fit for auditing, because every single action that is done is auditable and is logged somewhere. Yeah, but by default, TagUI doesn't do that logging. It's a flag, an option. You can choose to turn it on. I mean, for data privacy reason, we don't do that, but you can choose to turn it on if you want. Details on the processes: accounts payable, claims, CRM. This is a recent poll done in December last year for the various processes that is used by TagUI users. So again, many are accounting related. It's also even used for test automation, but I don't recommend that. There are definitely best in class test automation open source tools like Cypress that you can look at. Okay, and when we did the poll, the favorite TagUI feature that people say was ease of use, followed by cross-platform, because this is like maybe the only RPA tool that can run on Windows, Mac, and Linux. Most commercial RPA tools run on Windows because they rely on the Microsoft, one of the Microsoft automation library to do all the automation stuff. Then flexibility. When you start to use the tool, you recognize that there are multiple ways to get to the same outcome. So we leave a buffer for, let's say there are 3 ways to get to your destination. If the 2 of the ways, for whatever reason, it cannot work, you at least have a back end, the 3rd way to make sure you can get to where you want to go. Yeah, we never provide one path and then have no redundancy. That's a very bad design. So we don't do that, right? Now I will do a live example, a live demo, why it's really easy to use. So let me just run it in the live mode. So essentially your TagUI scripts and robots is nothing more than a text file where you can write in English, Chinese, or other languages you wish to. You just need to, in your config file, just update the language you are writing it in. So now I'm in live mode. What this means is that it's a mode where you can test your TagUI instructions live and see the outcome on your screen. All right. So let's say I go to Google homepage. It's as easy as giving the URL. So you have a TagUI RPA workflow. You have one line, just google.com. You'll go to Google website already. Then you want to do a search. You can do something like type Q as RPA, and then you enter it. And it's as simple as that. Just one line of instruction for one step you do on the user interface. And then you can do other things like collect the data on how many results, what's the first hit, what's the second hit, and what's the URL. Stuff like that can be done in one line per action. You may be thinking, what is this Q thing about? So everything you see on a website, actually it has an IC number. It's like an identity number in your country. So it's a matter of just right click to copy out that IC number, or you just use there's a Chrome extension for TagUI where you can do that easily. That's also another way. So when you enter the IC number, what TagUI will do is you'll use a smart algorithm to determine what's the best match given the this ID that you give. And based on the best match, you'll click and interact with the element. Okay. Then you say, okay, then if in that case, if it's smart algorithm, then it's not deterministic, right? Because you can't guarantee it's 100% correct. So never mind. In that case, you can give a very concise mapping. In this case, right, you probably do something like, let's say type your very concise way this way. Then it has no ambiguity already. It's an exact match for the element. Yeah, but if you're comfortable with some easier readability, then you can do something like that. So let me go back to Google homepage. So that's the first way where TagUI interact with an application. The second way is using computer vision. So let's say I have a search bar. It's the same search bar, but instead of using this IC number to click on it, I use an image snapshot to tell TagUI, hey, look for this thing on the screen. Okay, so let me go back here. So I can do something like click on search.png, and I can also do something like type search.png as what value enter, right? So that's the second way. And let me show you the third way. Okay, let me put my mouse at the search bar and I just maybe echo mouse XY. There's a function within TagUI to return the XY coordinates, but there are third-party apps that you can install on your computer that show you the XY coordinates of your mouse directly. So I can do something like click this, and you'll click on that part of the screen based on the XY coordinate. So what you see here is not these 3 types of ways which TagUI interact with an application. It is not just restricted to clicking. You can use it to type using these 3 ways. You can use it these 3 ways to read data as well. So you can use it in like all of the TagUI steps that interact with your, whether it's a Chrome browser, whether it's a desktop app, like in the video demo at the start where you see the Microsoft Word automation. So all this can be done in TagUI in all these three different ways. Except the web identifier. For desktop apps, there isn't a concept called web identifier, so there's no IC number. You have to just click on it visually. So for example, what I mean, let's say I'm running on Mac, but let's say you're on a Windows computer, your icon will be different. So let's say I do a PC, I click on the PC, then TagUI will, based on the image snapshot, click on the PC icon, right? It's as simple as that. Then let's say after clicking on PC, I want to do a search. Maybe something like that. Let's say I say S, okay? So after clicking on PC, I do a search. Type search the image as maybe RPA. So you'll use our computer vision to look for the search bar and search for RPA and enter. In the same way, you also can copy the text out using some other steps like read step, or you might want to use let's say keyboard step to do a Control C for Windows or Command C for Mac to copy it to the clipboard. All right, and another thing about TagUI is it has OCR inbuilt within already directly. So let's say we look at this PDF document. You can provide a range where to extract the text. You can also provide an anchor, based on certain element. Then based on an anchor, you provide a relative range where to extract. You can also provide a window frame. You do a snapshot of this, then you remove the contents, and then TagUI will just search for the window frame and do OCR on the contents. So similar to the different steps, TagUI also can do OCR using different ways. Okay. So let me do an example using the first way, using range. Okay, let me get the XY value here. And the XY value here. This is just a demo. Normally, I don't recommend using a range because if your PDF window move position cannot work already. So normally I recommend you pick an anchor and calculate the range based on the anchor. And the anchor can be something like this button here or the toolbar here. Everything is relative to this, correct? So let's go back. Then I do, maybe I save this range to a text file. Maybe ocr.txt. Oh, sorry, I think I do syntax error and should be like save this to txt. Okay. So when you do this using a somewhat human language syntax, you can save it to a text file, the OCR extraction in one line. You can also use the read step to save it to a variable so that you can do some other string manipulation later. So let me open the OCR text file and then the original copy. Can I zoom in? Yeah. So you see, right off the shelf is like 99% accurate already, right? There are some blips here like the FI, because maybe it's too small, is interpreted as some foreign language character. So we have an open issue on GitHub that I'm working on to see, whether we can fine tune these. Like, for example, whenever we encounter this foreign language character, is it safe enough to say that, oh, usually this means FI. Can we just do an auto mapping for this thing to FI? And if we can, we'll probably add it to the next release so that the OCR quality improves. All right. So yeah, so this will be a live example of why it's so easy to use and why it's so flexible from a user's perspective. Now, before I go to the next part on the lucky draw, I will cover a little bit more about what's really useful in TagUI and the features we have in the coming year. Okay. So we have this concept of reusable assets, which means the longer you use the tool, the more your team use the tool, you will find easier to maintain it. Automation, you'll find easier to create. Let me mute. I think somebody mic is unmute. You'll find easier to create the next set of robots. Why I say that? Okay, let's look at this flow chart. There's a TagUI workflows, there's an object repository, data tables, and custom functions. And then you have your automated processes. Okay, workflows would be things like this, your step-by-step instructions, what to do. And because of the modular design, for example, for a particular website, you always need to log in. So you just do that, let's say 3 steps, 5 steps to log in as a single workflow file. And then you do your other step in some other workflow file. So you can just always call back this one file to do the login. Yeah, it's very modular. So it makes it easier to maintain. And if the website changes here and there, you don't need to change all your robots. Okay. Object repository. That is an idea where, let's say you have 100 workflows running on 0 accounting website. But if one day the website changed, does that mean you got to update 100 robots? It cannot be. It's too much work. So what you do is you decouple the workflow, the sequence of actions to do with the data on where to click and what to click. And when you decouple it this way, you have 100 workflows that point to one spreadsheet containing those ID and so on. And then when the website changed, you just need to update that one file. And then your 100 workflows reference that file. You don't need to change everything. And data tables is useful when, let's say you have one workflow, but you want to run it 100 times on a certain data set. So you don't have to rewrite, develop 100 robots. You use the same one robot, but you do it each time with a different data set. Okay, so these are some of the key features that is making it easy the more the tool is being used. I think there are also many examples of companies using TagUI in Singapore. For example, National Library, they run it nightly to get information from goodreads.com and book repository, and they get those information on what are the new books that's released, the reviews, and after that they decide what to purchase, for example. And within their team, they also make use of these concepts like this to make the maintainers very easy and make the handing over, let's say somebody leave and somebody new join, very easy. Okay, now I'll cover on the roadmap. Just feel free to continue typing your questions if you have any. Then we'll cover that during the Q&A. So in terms of the current landscape for RPA software, TagUI is already one of the easiest to use, yet one of the most powerful. And it comes free as an open source tool. I think it's because of the strategic position of AI Singapore. We are not a commercial company. We are not a profit-driven company. We are a so-called a national AI initiative. It's the National AI Program for Singapore. So as part of our motivation to make AI more accessible to the Singapore ecosystem, we also would like Singapore SMEs to be able to use RPA without some of the barrier to entry, like high technical level of skill needed. You need a lot of training to do it, or high cost of entry. For example, UiPath, if you use it for commercial purpose, your company is more than 5 million revenue a year. A typical installation is about 100K Singapore dollars a year. That's about 60K USD a year. So that's not a cost which a lot of companies is comfortable with. But TagUI is free, and we can do it because of our our initiative as a national AI initiative. All right. And this year in our roadmap, we are planning to integrate with Excel, emails, and Telegram, which means with one line of instruction, you can tell TagUI to say, hey, the RPA robot bot has completed. I want to send a notification to Telegram. So you say Telegram, your ID, and then your message. Then we want to have integration with email so that with one line of instruction, you can send an email to somebody. And same with Excel. In one line, can we tell TagUI to tell Excel to open this spreadsheet, to update something at a certain sheet, certain row, certain column with certain data. So this would be what we are planning to do this year. I think this would be done. We are planning for Q2 to be done, but I think it can be, some of it can be in production by Q1. Then a big idea that we want to work on this year is we want to really bring RPA to everyone and make it accessible.
So 我还 350 啊。
Okay, I think somebody accidentally unmute. Okay, I'll mute again. Sorry. So if we want to bring RPA to be accessible to everyone, we thought of an idea. Why not we bring RPA to where the users are? For example, imagine by end of this year, when you open up Microsoft Word or Google Docs, there's a toolbar where you can say record. And when you click the record button, you will use an AI recorder to record all the steps that you do on your desktop apps or your web application. And when you click stop recording, what you see is a generated TagUI workflow of the step-by-step instructions, what to automate on. Click and you have an image. Click and you have this thumbnail of an image where to click, type thumbnail of an image as something. So this is the vision that we are working towards. And when that happens, after clicking stop recording, there'll be a button for you to deploy and run that robot directly within Microsoft Word, directly within Google Docs. And then the results will automatically be sent back to Microsoft PowerPoint slide deck as a statistics of your robot. And then you can do other things like define your schedule and parameters in Excel or in Google Sheets. So these are ideas we are working on. And also on the call is Ruth To. She has just joined the team this week. We'll work closely with her to implement some of these ideas. Of course, you see on the call Basu, who is our tech community manager. Okay. Another thing is cloud. We are starting to toy with the idea of cloud-based RPA. So I did a POC for Google Colab, I think last week. So when I open this link, okay, anyway, this link is also available from the GitHub homepage for TagUI. So when you open up this link, you'll be able to see 3 lines of Colab instructions. And these 3 lines of Colab instructions will set up TagUI on a Google Cloud Server and then run it on the workflow and then validate the results. So essentially, you are doing RPA on somebody else's computer and resource. In this case, Google is paying the bill for this. Okay. So now I'm running it, the first line to install and set up the environment. And then the second line, I'll talk a bit about the second line. After the environment is set up and TagUI is installed, there is a second line where you can run TagUI on a cloud-based workflow. So let me copy this and paste. Let's see what this is. So this workflow, it goes to GitHub homepage. It extract the license type for this project and show it to the screen. And then it did a couple of steps to download the source code as a zip file. So it's a very simple RPA workflow. So let me go back to here. Okay, it looks like it's almost done. Yes, installed the Chrome browser. Now it's installing TagUI. Okay, and why need to install? Because this is Google Cloud Server. They cannot keep a server there perpetually for you to use. Each time you open the Colab spreadsheet, the Colab notebook, it will reinitialize a new cloud instance for you. So it's like a blank slate, right? So after you run and install, the second line will run this TagUI workflow on the cloud. So I start the automation. It goes to GitHub homepage and Apache 2 license, and download the zip file. And Apache 2 license is the most permissible you can have already for enterprise purpose. MIT is even more permissible, but it's not so safe for users because anyone can take the project, modify it, and promote it with the same name, and it's actually legally okay. Yeah, it might confuse user to use malware, so we didn't choose for that. We opt for Apache 2. Okay, so it's done already. Then we validate that the zip file is there. So you see, the zip file has been generated there. This is, I think, GMT time zones. That's why it's showing 1:30 p.m. And then you can just download the zip to your laptop. And what's amazing about this is that you can run it on your mobile phone. So if I give you the link now in a group chat, you can just exactly run it on your mobile phone already, and then get the RPA result right to your mobile phone or laptop. Yeah. So we'll explore a bit on this. This is just version 1. Version 2, probably we do a Python package to make it easier to use here. And we also explore a little bit on GitHub Actions, so that actually from GitHub, you not only can do a Linux server, you can also do a Microsoft Windows server. You can also do a Mac OS server. Yeah, and all these are compliments from Microsoft GitHub. They are paying the bills for that. And you can even wrap it up as a REST service. Yeah, but anyway, this part here on the cloud is a bit more techy lah. So as we move along this year to work on these first few features that make it easy for the people without programming and tech background, we also don't want to neglect folks with a programming background. That's why we'll concurrently develop new features that the expert and developers type of profile users can make use of it. And to us, our benchmark for a good app is like Microsoft Excel. Whether you're a school kid or an expert Excel user, it has a different face to you. And based on your capabilities and skills and experience, you can do a wide range of things with it. So we are using that as a benchmark. We also have things like the soft SLA, where you raise an issue on GitHub, we'll reply within 24 hours, including weekends. And we have a weekly live Q&A where you can join a Zoom meeting to share screen and have a face-to-face conversation about your RPA scenario and issue. And if you choose to use YouTube streaming, you can do that as well and ask that in the group chat. That is every Thursday at 4 p.m. But for today session, I postponed to tomorrow. It'll be Friday at 4 p.m. Singapore time. And the reason is because for the Q&A tonight, if there's not enough time, you guys can join that session tomorrow if the time works for you. So tomorrow at 4 p.m. Singapore time. And the link is also on the GitHub homepage. All right. I guess that's about all I want to share until the new features. Now I'll quickly do a lucky draw demo before we go on to the Q&A. So all this we don't need already. Okay, lucky draw demo. So when I double click on this TagUI command, right, when you develop an RPA script and workflow, you can have a deploy option where everything comes out nicely as an icon, which you can double click to run. And you can also add it to your scheduler, task scheduler to schedule it to run. But in this case, I'm running it manually. So when I double click on this lucky draw 2, there's 1 for the session 1. This is 2 for the session 2. So where I double click on it, you'll go to the Eventbrite page. You'll go to the particular event for this webinar, the run number 2. Incidentally, we have run number 2 because the first run was oversubscribed and we run a situation where people can't get in. So we do a run 2. Then it download the CSV from this event page. And then it randomly draw a winner. So we'll give out a DataCamp 1-year annual subscription for this winner. Oh, okay. Winner is someone from Poland. Right, not sure whether Radio is here. Let me see. He doesn't seem to be here. Okay, no problem. So what we'll do is at the end of the Zoom meeting, based on the participant list here, we'll just pick another winner since Radislav is not here. Okay? Yeah, just to be fair, since he's not here today. Okay.
He's my brother and he's absent. Yeah.
Oh,
Failure.
okay. Can you ping me on your on the Zoom meeting? Can you drop me a message so that we know how to contact you? Yeah, just send me a private message. Yeah, of your email.
Okay, I will do it after
Right.
that.
Thank you. Okay. And we also have another lucky draw for the poll participants earlier in December. So let me open the DataCamp website. We will be giving away as well for the poll participant winner 1 year subscription for the standard plan. So this is a website where people go to learn machine learning and data science. It will be a 1 year subscription. So because there are 2 sessions for this webinar, I can't do that lucky draw 2 times. I did it in the afternoon and record the result, and I will just run the automation to show you. So in this TagUI workflow, what it does is it runs the automation to go to the polling results spreadsheet and then download it and then generate a winning user. All these are TagUI users. They were doing a poll for various metrics and qualitative measurements for TagUI. So it's using a shortcut key to download the file as a spreadsheet and then loading the file and getting the email address and then randomly selecting a winner. Yeah, it's this guy called Join something from India. So we'll reach out to him after the webinar to pass the DataCamp subscription to him. Okay. Now I will show you just how easy it is to do the automation for selecting the winner from Eventbrite. So there are various comments. Let's say I remove the comments. All it takes is 6-7 lines of instructions for TagUI to do that. You just need 1 line to go to the event page for the report. You just need 1 line to click CSV, to click on the CSV button. Then there are a few lines of, you just need 1 line to load the CSV file. And then there's 2 lines of JavaScript code here. So, as much as low-code vendors like to say, oh, you can do up here without ever writing a line of code, that's absolutely not true. There's no way to simply drag and drop all possible usage scenario into assistance. There's just no way. It's like there's infinite possibilities of things you want to do. How you ever have a drag and drop menu to do that? You will probably have 4,000 menu items to choose from. So that's not possible. Same for UiPath, same for automation anywhere. If you want to do something very, very specific, you'll end up having to rely and fall back on things like a JavaScript or some other programming languages. And for TagUI, the backend language is JavaScript and Python. So when you Google how to do something in JavaScript and Python, you'll get a lot of results. There's just a lot of resources. But if you have a roadblock, just raise an issue to us on the GitHub page and we'll help you with getting you to the outcome you want. Okay. And then, okay, I think what's next would be the next steps. Very briefly, I want to show you from the GitHub homepage, what are the resources that is already there, which you can make use of and decide whether, this is a right tool for your personal use or for your work purpose. So at the homepage, you have things like where to download it for Linux, Mac, and Windows, the documentation. So quite nicely written documentation by different section. You have things like demos, like the video demos that I shown earlier. You have some sample workflows. You have the slide deck of some of the matrix and stuff, so on. I think for some folks, you might need to show a slide deck to convince your supervisor to allow you to use some tooling, right? So this will be the slide that you can show your boss, right? There's a tab for feedback if you want to submit any feedback to us. And if you have an issue, you can raise the issue here. It's a GitHub issues page. You can just sign in to GitHub and then just post something here. Then we will try our best to respond within 24 hours, including weekends. And what's useful for you, particularly, will be the weekly live Q&A. When you click on it, you'll see an index of a past Q&A sessions with the topics covered. And the upcoming one, it'll be this one at the 4 p.m. Singapore time. It's a Zoom meeting, but when the meeting starts, I will have a YouTube live stream URL, which I will update here. Let me see, 4 p.m. Singapore time, it's the morning time for Europe, and also it's the business hours for Middle East, South Africa, UK, and so on. Yeah, I did a mapping of some of the time zones in the world, and I find that 4 p.m. seems to be a good sweet spot where it's in the Singapore business hours. At the same time, some of the business hours for our neighbors all the way to Europe, but not so good time for US is their nighttime sleeping time. So for tomorrow, it'll be Friday, 4 p.m. Singapore time, but subsequently, it'll be every Thursday, 4 p.m. Singapore time. Okay, so let me go back to the group chat to see what questions there are. All right, so I'll first answer the questions on the group chat, and when that's done and there's no more questions, see whether anyone want to ask the questions face to face. Can we get this slide deck? Yes. When you Google TagUI from the GitHub page, you have this slide deck link. Okay. Yeah, okay, Ruth also answered. Any plans to support Android devices? Android devices, unless you're a hacker, you normally won't run RPA from the terminal on Android. But because we are trying to get RPA doable on the cloud, for example, let me paste the URL. Let's say the Colab example I gave, that's an early prototype, but later we'll probably make it nicer and it's more usable. So let's say I copy this link. Okay. So Colab link to TagUI on the cloud or phone. So when you open this on your mobile phone, you'll be able to run TagUI already. Okay. If you can demonstrate the execution of TagUI using a long, yeah, I can do that. Yeah, I think we got time. Let's try that. So I'll run the workflow, do a simple search. Okay, let me get this chat window out of the way. Okay, but I need to change the config to use Chinese. So instead of English, I said, okay, I want to run the Chinese workflow. Okay, then I'm using a VI editor, but to you guys, you can use your favorite text editor. It can be a Notepad, Notepad++, it can be Sublime or VS Code. It doesn't matter. Okay, open it. So I'm going to run this example workflow where it's based in Chinese. So it does a search on Yahoo, but all the steps are in Chinese, right? And all I need to do to run it is just now I show you to just change the setting for the config file to use Chinese. So all these steps are all in Chinese, but the identifier, the web element IDs are all in English. This one I can't change because the website is designed in English. I can't have a Chinese matching IC number for it. Yeah, but the search term you can use Chinese, of course. Okay, so I'll run that now using Chinese. Let me put the Chrome window to the front. Minimize this. Okay. Okay, so now the web page is loading. It goes to yahoo.com and it enter the search input as a GitHub and does the search, and then it shows. Oh, okay. Yeah, for non-Chinese participant, this word means show, display in English. Then click on the search button and echo. Sorry, this is no, wait for 2.5 seconds, and it shows that it's completed. Yeah, so this will be an example in Chinese. Okay, so let me close this file. Let me change back my default language to English. Okay. Okay, next question. Will okay. Will the session be recorded and shared? Yes, yes. That you can use the YouTube live stream link above for this session. Yeah. In fact, it's already available now, and after that, this session will still be there. But I will probably type some introduction description. Now I think there's no description, just a title. Yeah, thanks for your feedback, Qi Ying. Yeah, you're saying that the ability to write in different language is amazing. I think it's really useful in the sense, let's say you are from a country where your native language is not English, maybe it can be Bahasa Indonesia or Thai or Korean or Japanese. You can write RPA robots in your native language, and your users around your company or your friends can make modifications and make changes and understand what the RPA is doing in their own native language. This is something no other commercial tools can do. They're just not designed for this purpose. But for TagUI, I try to think more global. How can it be more localized? So right from the start, this is a feature already added in. What can we do now with Excel before the next release? I wish to open multiple files and come up with an analysis. Okay, so for Excel, let me paste a recent issue that a user raised. So then I'll paste it in a group chat so you can refer to it. So I'll type in the group chat. I want to reply to everyone. Excel example. So right now, there are two ways to do it. One is you can write Python code and use a Python package to open and modify Excel. Another one is you do it visually using computer vision. So let's say normally you do these 50 steps to do what you need to do in Excel, to do whatever you want. You just map the 50 steps to TagUI and tell it to do it using computer vision. So I'll play a short video of that happening using the computer vision. Okay, play. So in this video example, Excel is being controlled by TagUI, and by using computer vision and keyboard shortcuts, we can do things like merging two Excel spreadsheet into one spreadsheet, and then auto-generating a running number for the final merge spreadsheet. So now it's copying from second spreadsheet and paste it. And the last step is it will auto-generate the running number. Let's say you want to combine transactions from two different accounts into one, for example. So all this can be done in TagUI. So some people may ask, hey, why would you want to do Excel automation using RPA. You might as well use Excel macro. You might as well use programmatically a Python package or whatever. So yes, that's true most of the time, but in many cases, that's not true. I give you an example. Let's say you are a small, medium company. In your whole company, nobody knows Python. Nobody knows Excel macro. So in such a situation, a solution like this may be better than having no solution at all. And if you develop a solution that's easy to understand, when somebody leaves the company, it's easy to hand over to the next guy. But if you develop in Python and that Python expert leaves the company, then you guys are screwed, right? So you got to think of all this backward compatibility stuff and considerations. So this is an example with Excel. And incidentally, when I talk about Python, TagUI, I did a personal project called RPA for Python. So when you pip install RPA, you will automatically install a Python package. And then the Python package exposes all the RPA functionality of TagUI to the Python user. So, that's also an option if you are coming from Python background. Otherwise, TagUI would be something more easier to use. And in fact, I have not seen anything that can get you from an idea to automate to actually deploying it as fast as TagUI. It's really hard to beat the speed of how fast you can develop automation and deploy using TagUI. Okay. Does TagUI work with SAP? Yes. In SAP, if you are talking about web-based version of SAP, you can use the web automation method of identifiers and so on. But if you're talking about the desktop client-based SAP, you have to use computer visions and your keyboard keystrokes. So that can be done. Are there any online tutorials that will walk us through the steps of being productive? Oh, online tutorial. I see. There really isn't much on that now. There are some samples which you can learn the main features. Let me paste that. So the samples can also be accessible from the homepage here, under here samples. Maybe start with samples. Okay, yeah. So let me see. Yeah, I guess that answers everybody's question. So does anyone?
Sorry,
yeah.
I believe you have missed some. Maybe you could just backtrack and take a look again.
Sure.
Yeah.
Sure. Sorry for that.
Sure. Yeah.
Oh, is there an R interface? There's RPA for Python. Yeah, I missed some. Let me answer them. I think I skipped just now. Is there an R interface? Yes, TagUI now supports R natively already. Let me paste the documentation for that here. Yeah, but R we kind of consider it as an advanced feature because now more people use Python So let me paste it here. Yes, R integration here. So what this means by R integration is in your robot script for TagUI, you can do your normal RPA stuff. You can also send the information to your R environment, do your R calculations and formulas and whatever, return the result back, stuff like that. You can do that. Okay. Able to do script scraping? Yeah, of course. Web scraping means like you go to a web page, you get data. Yeah, you can do that. You use a lot of the read step to do it. You just define where you want to get the data from, and you can either inspect to get XPath, or you can use a free TagUI Chrome extension to install the Chrome extension, and you right click to show what is that particular ID for that part you want to collect the data from. Okay, same question. Yeah, in that case, if you run into questions, just feel free to raise an issues here or join us at the weekly live Q&A. We'll guide you through to make sure you can achieve the outcome you want. It should be pretty straightforward. There's very, very, very few scenario where TagUI can't do. Yeah. Of course, anything creative that needs a not rule-based, I think RPA cannot do as a whole. Is TagUI able to work with CAD software? Yes. In particular, in CAD software, you will need fine-tune control of your mouse. So you have certain low-level mouse functions. That's also covered in the docs under here, under the documentation. So there's like mouse down, mouse up, and you can move your mouse to a certain XY coordinate. You can move your mouse to a certain offset of the XY coordinate. So that is definitely possible. With a CAD. CAD means a computer-aided drawing like AutoCAD or maybe 3D Studio, stuff like that. Okay. Does TagUI allow the sending of email via Outlook? Yes, it does it through, let's say you're talking about Outlook.com, you can use the web IC number, but if you're talking about desktop app, you can use a computer vision method, get a screenshot of that send button, get a screenshot of the new mail button, and so on. Yeah, and now you got to do your own screenshot. But later this year, when we create the AI recorder, hopefully that will help make it easier. When you record and stop recording, all the steps and screenshot will be generated automatically for you. Then you just do your fine tuning and you can run and deploy. Can TagUI support integrate with third-party activities like Azure? Oh, yes. TagUI, there's this step called API step. So for the API step, you can actually make API calls to whatever REST services and send the API body and so on and get the response back. You can do that. Or to enable the Google search again. Okay, sure. Short demo. Okay, so now we are overrunning. So I understand if you guys, some of you got to drop, but for those who can stay on, you're welcome to stay on as I continue some of the remaining questions. So Google using computer vision. Okay, so I go to Google homepage. Okay, I'm trying to see whether I want to do something even more elaborate, because with computer vision, essentially I can click on my Safari, I can open a new tab, I can type out the Google thing here, .com, and then I can use computer vision to click on that search bar. So I can do to that extent. But maybe for this short demo, I'll just go straight to the example, so it's easier to understand. So I go to google.com. Then I click search. Just now we do a screenshot already. Let's say I do a type. Search as RPA, enter. Okay. Then I wait for, let's say, 3 seconds. Then I do a screenshot. Snap page.png. This one, the whole desktop. You want to do a screenshot of that web browser only, it's also possible. To results.png, for example, something simple like that. Maybe I want to click on Google. I want to click on the Chrome icon first. Why? Because sometimes when you, where's the Chrome icon? Okay, here. Because when you do RPA, you do exactly as you instructed it. But if your app is not in the foreground, then you'll be typing to some other window like the terminal window, and you will not work correctly. So to be sure, I click on the Chrome icon. So what I need to do is just get a screenshot of the Chrome icon. And on Mac is a Docker, is the dock, but on Windows is the taskbar. So you just capture the Chrome your icon accordingly. So I click Chrome icon, I type search, and I wait for a few seconds, and I do the result. So I just run it now. Okay, I'm at my desktop. Okay, so now it is running. It will take maybe a few seconds because it needs the computer vision engine OpenCV to be loaded into memory first. And that's quite a large. So after it loads to memory, you should see my mouse moving to first click on the Chrome icon to bring the Chrome browser to the foreground. And after that, you click on the search bar and type RPA. Cannot find. Oh, I'm sorry. Negative demo, because just now after the demo, I delete away the search thing again. Yeah. Sorry, I'll run again one more time. Yeah, I thought I created a snapshot, but I deleted it earlier already after using it. So it's no longer there. Okay. So I run it one more time. Let me see what other questions while it's running and loading the computer vision engine. Oh, this is to me. Okay, so my Mac laptop is like from 6-7 years ago, so it's a bit slow. For your laptop, it's definitely going to be faster. I'm blocking this thing, so now you see it type the search RPA there, and then search the result using computer vision. And the reason why I choose to use the very slow laptop for my main work purpose is because I want to test TagUI on a very slow laptop, so that for the user who's using a very old laptop and very old computers, they still can use it and make it usable and work. If I use a super high power laptop and to me it works very fast, work very well, then I won't know how bad it is for the user who's not using as a good laptop. So that's the reason. Although my work laptop is a very high-end laptop, I normally use this personal one for all these development purposes. Okay, right. Well, okay. So let me just oh, okay. So what competitive advantage from natural language RPA do I see for Singapore? So for Singapore, because we have 4 different languages, right? When we develop RPA in different languages, we can actually make it more customized for the particular company and organization. But where I do see it more useful would be regions like, let's say, Indonesia, Malaysia, and Thailand. Because for those users, right, their native business language is in their native language, not English. So for them, will be more meaningful. And for Singapore, competitive economy, I don't really think that this is the main. It's good to have if you have RPA in your native language, but that's not the biggest edge that TagUI have above other open source or commercial tools. The biggest benefit is like things like 24-hour SLA, the weekly live Q&A, and the ease of use when you develop and run an automation. Yes, it supports a Vietnamese language. Okay, so let's say I go to the source and then I go to languages. You can see the different languages here, and Vietnamese is also there. Yeah. Okay. From the home page, you will see a link to the Vietnamese language. Under here, 20 other languages. Okay. Will there be an issue if there are 2 of the same icon on the same screen? Yes, there will be an issue because RPA is like stupid. You know, it do exactly what you tell it to do. When you say click on this icon and there are 2, it doesn't know which one. You click the first one that you find a match. So in those cases, maybe the best would be instead of clicking the icon, you can click, let's say, the XY coordinate of where you expect it to be. You can, instead of clicking icon, you use keyboard shortcuts like there's a keyboard step. You can do alternate tab, control tab, or whatever. Does it support? Yeah, of course, the Japanese, of course. Languages. In fact, a native Japanese actually send a pull request so that those is updated to the best in-class translation for Japanese. initially I generate this using a RPA robot for TagUI to get from Google Translate, but somebody improve it to make sure it's accurate. Now I can hold order by sitting here to purchase. Oh, I see. Yeah, you can do that. But depending on which website that you're doing it on, they might be able to detect that you are doing it using a robot. So if they can detect that, because like you keep refreshing the page every like 0.5 second, 0.1 second, and you do it for 1 hour, a normal human user don't have that endurance to keep doing it non-stop for so long and so fast, for example. Will there be any problem if the image resolution is different for different laptops? Yes, there will be. If it's very different, for example, if you have a 4HD desktop monitor and you have a lower res one, the screenshot you capture will be very different in the size and the quality. So when it's drastically different, it will not work. It will not be a match. But if it's slightly different, there's some room for error. Like let's say 80% confidence, it will still be a match. I want to run TagUI at a specific date and time. Yes, you have to set it as scheduled task on the machine. After you use the deploy option to create the icon, you can just configure on Windows a task scheduler, or you can create you can buy an app, a third-party app that does all this scheduling for you. But normally, from what I heard, users use Windows Task Scheduler, it works fine. And for Mac and Linux, you can use a Chrome tab, or you can buy other third-party apps. There are also free third-party apps for scheduling. Is there a way for RPA and user to work concurrently on the same computer? Yes, but you got to design your RPA to have this handshaking thing. Like for example, after the RPA does the part that it's supposed to do, it will pause for user to finish doing what the user want to do. Let's say approve something and confirm something. Then the user say, okay, continue. Then the RPA continue. So there must be this syncing and handshaking design as part of your workflow. But otherwise, if you are using computer vision, can you imagine the RPA robot is doing something, but you are typing somewhere else at another tab? That of course cannot. Yeah, but if you are doing just purely automating Chrome website, yes, you can let the user and RPA to concurrently do it together, because the TagUI will talk to the Chrome browser directly through the back end through a WebSocket connection. So we are not even using any third-party library or modules or whatever. We are writing the raw WebSocket commands to talk to Chrome directly. So I did that because I want to maintain the 100% control on that communications channel, so we can iterate, improve to make sure it's the best in class for that integration to Chrome. Can TagUI run between different monitors to perform different tasks? Off the shelf cannot, but there's some way to configure it so that you can do it that way. Okay, but if you are referring to on different computer and run different tasks concurrently, then cannot, because you only have one mouse. You only have one mouse and one keyboard. How are you going to type and move your mouse on different monitor at the same time? So not really. Does that ultimately use the, yes. By default, it has a setting of let me show you the config file. Maybe let's not go to the config file, right? Maybe people who don't have like tech experience, IT experience, but find like, oh, so troublesome, right? So TagUI by default, it has a timeout of 10 seconds. What this means is that if you want to do something on the screen, whether it's web page or a desktop app, if you'll wait until 10 seconds for it to appear. And if it doesn't appear, it will throw an error. But that default of 10 seconds, you can change with this step. This is also covered in the documentation. It's timeout. You can say timeout, maybe change it to 5 seconds, or in certain cases, 300 seconds. Why? Because in some cases, maybe you intentionally want to stop running for a while for user to key in their login password, their 2FA, and so on. So you intentionally wait for 5 minutes before you do the next step, and then you time out. Yeah, that's possible. And after you change the timeout to 300 seconds, you just set a timeout back to the default, which is 10 seconds. Can it be run as a Windows service, run before logging into Windows? No, I haven't explored it, so I can't say that it can be done that way. It might be, but I have not tried it before, so I don't know. Does TagUI have a centralized control room like orchestrator? Okay, the design for TagUI is such that it's meant to be run locally on your laptop. So it's more distributed, not like, let's say you think about Blue Prism. Let's say you're a large bank. In your server room, there's probably one room where you have all the laptops in one whole row, and then you have a centralized computer that can control everything. But the concept for TagUI is more distributed. For example, let's say you are an accounting team, you have one boss, but your one boss have, let's say, 5 direct reports. So the 5 direct reports will install their own TagUI RPA and run it locally on their laptop. And then the reporting will be done using the human channel. Let's say accountant 1 finish running the automation, you send the data and report back to his boss, and accountant 2 do the same. So it doesn't interfere with the usual reporting structure. Can TagUI save data to data table or database? Yes, you can save to a CSV file, and upcoming in the next couple of months, we'll add the ability to save it to a spreadsheet. And to save it to a database, right now you can already, but you know, if you are familiar with database, you know that there are all kinds of database, and different database need different type of SQL commands to inject the data into the database. But as long as your database allow injection of data from the command line, TagUI can do it. Because from TagUI, there is a run step which you can use it to run command line commands within an automation workflow. So you can send data to database, you can read data from database, but you need to know the SQL command to query them. Then you can run it. Can I create unattended bots? Yes, you can create unattended bots. Just but in this case, the unattended bots is more of like having a laptop standing by to run automation, and you let it run. It's not like a laptop is shut down in power, or suddenly it can run in the background. No, you still need a laptop to be physically powered on to run it. Can TagUI be ran within virtual machines concurrently? Yes, you can do that, but it has to be under different user accounts on the same machine, so that the Chrome browser process does not interfere with each other, so that the TagUI main running process does not interfere with each other. This is what I heard, but I never tried it. I don't have a personal use case for that, so I didn't try that, but I heard that can be done. Do you know of other webinar? Not really, right, Basu? Is there any other webinar that shows the other AI Singapore bricks and do AI libraries?
No, not at the moment, but I think we can bring this back to the team for the input.
Okay. Gary Q will say, is there a cheat sheet of all TagUI commands? Okay. I will pass you 2 cheat sheet. One would be the old cheat sheet from version 5 documentation. So that one, at one glance, you can see all the commands, okay? Okay, and the second cheat sheet I'll pass you is from the current GitHub homepage, from docs, there is this link on reference. Yeah, and all these reference has the steps here already. Sheet 2. Okay. Can it be run offline? Yes, you don't need an internet connection to run TagUI. It doesn't need an internet connection unless you want to automate some website using it. Then definitely you need some internet connectivity. And for TagUI, when you run it, it does not send any data outside of your computer. So we don't collect any matrix or any data of usage. No, none at all. I got the information on the processes is through a public poll. a public poll, people fill up those info. We don't collect any data. So definitely you can run it offline. And let's say you are in a corporate environment where you have firewall and you can't access internet, you can also run TagUI. You just download the zip and copy to your intranet and then start to install over there. Okay. Part of status user is similar. Part of TagUI function is similar to web scraping using Selenium. No, I actually write the whole engine to talk to Chrome through a low-level WebSocket connection. So Chrome has a provision where I can open a WebSocket and control it directly. I send data to Chrome and read data back. I did that instead of Selenium because I want the full control of that integration. If I use Selenium, I will always forever be dependent on Selenium and its releases. I don't want that. I want to have a full control on how fast I can iterate and fix bugs. Thank you for the demo. Okay, I think I should have covered all the questions, but if I miss out anything, there are two ways to continue the conversation. One would be from the webinar URL. You can continue to post questions here. All right, and if you miss that, you can also join the weekly live Q&A. And if the time zone is just not so good for you, above weekly live Q&A. Then if the time zone is just bad for you, 4 p.m. Singapore time, then just feel free to raise a GitHub issue here. Then I'll answer you there. Okay, in case I miss any questions. Yeah. Okay. Does anyone else have any other questions before we call it a day? Okay. Then if not, on behalf of Basil, who's here, he's a tech community manager. Ruth, though, who's will be working closely with me on the RPA roadmap this year. We would like to thank you guys for spending the evening with us. And you can use the YouTube URL to refer if you miss out on something. And if your friends want to know more about it, you can look it up as well. I would say the tool now, as it is already very easy to use. But along this year, we'll make it 10 times easier to use, and we will provide all this support along the way when you run into problems. So it will not be you attend the training, you download the tool, bye, see you next year. It's not. It's it's more like a start of a relationship where you can start your RPA journey, and you run into issues, just ping us. We'll guide you along and make it a successful deployments. Yeah. So that's the vision for AI Singapore. For the RPA part, there are other initiatives that we do on AI and machine learning. So just check out on our AI Singapore homepage, aisingapore.org, or maybe you can follow us on our LinkedIn page at AI Singapore. You have more details of the various other projects. Right? Okay. All right. Thank you, everyone. I had a great time and hope to see you all in the future. Thank you.